The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the gleaming entrance of the Grand Meridian Hotel as Pam Bondi stepped out of her taxi. She paid the driver, grabbed her simple carry-on bag, and stood for a moment taking in the impressive facade. The building stretched upward, its glass windows reflecting the golden light. This was now hers, all of it, though no one inside knew that yet. Pam had just finished a 5-hour flight followed by an hour in traffic. Her neck was stiff and her eyes felt gritty from lack of sleep. The last 3 months had been a whirlwind of meetings, paperwork, and negotiations as she finalized the purchase of the Meridian Hotel chain. But not a single employee had met the new owner. That was exactly how Pam wanted it. She smoothed down her plain blue blouse and adjusted her ponytail. She'd deliberately dressed down in jeans and comfortable flats, leaving her designer clothes and signature pearls at home. Her face, usually made up for business meetings, was bare except for a touch of lip balm. She looked like any other tired traveler, not the high-powered real estate investor who had just completed a multi-million-dollar acquisition. "This is the only way to know the truth," she murmured to herself, picking up her bag. Her old boss had taught her this trick years ago. Experience your business as a customer first before you start making changes. She'd booked her stay under her maiden name and requested a standard room, not the presidential suite she could now claim as her own. As Pam pushed through the revolving doors into the lobby, her trained eye took in everything. The marble floors gleamed and fresh flowers adorned the central table, but she noticed a water stain on the ceiling corner and a slightly frayed edge on one of the lobby rugs. Small details, perhaps, but they spoke volumes about attention to care. The check-in line moved slowly. Pam watched as a young couple ahead of her grew increasingly frustrated with the process. The desk clerk, a young man with a name tag reading Tyler, kept typing and retyping information without making eye contact. "I'm sorry, but I can't find your reservation," he said flatly to the couple. "We've shown you the confirmation email twice now," the woman replied, her voice tight with annoyance. Tyler shrugged slightly. "The system isn't showing it. You'll have to book again at today's rate." Pam winced as she watched the scene unfold. The current rate displayed on the board behind the desk was nearly double what weekend promotional rates had been when she'd analyzed the hotel's pricing structure. The couple eventually gave up and left, muttering about finding another hotel. When Pam stepped up to the desk, Tyler didn't look up from his computer. "Checking in?" he asked, his tone suggesting this was the 1,000th time he'd said those words today. "Yes, reservation under Patricia Bell." She'd used her middle name and maiden name for the booking. Tyler typed lazily. 3 nights? "That's right. ID and credit card." Pam handed them over, watching as Tyler barely glanced at the ID before swiping her card. This was another mark against current operations. Minimal security verification. Room 412, elevators are to the right. Breakfast is included, served 6 to 10. He slid a key card across the counter without meeting her eyes. "Next, please." No mention of amenities, no offer to help with luggage, no welcome to the Meridian. Pam made mental notes as she moved toward the elevators. She'd reviewed the hotel's training materials during the acquisition. They specifically outlined a warm welcome script that Tyler had completely ignored. The elevator smelled faintly of someone's lunch. Pam pressed the button for the 4th floor and watched the doors close on the gleaming lobby. As the elevator rose, she wondered what else she would discover during her undercover stay. The financial statements had shown declining revenue over the past 2 years, but numbers never told the full story. When the doors opened, she stepped into a hallway that was noticeably less polished than the main lobby. The carpet showed wear paths, and one of the wall sconces had a burnt-out bulb. Pam found room 412 and slid her keycard into the lock. It took 3 tries before the light turned green. The room itself was clean but showed signs of age. The once white duvet had taken on a grayish tint, and the desk chair wobbled when she set her bag on it. Pam walked to the window and pulled back the curtains to reveal a view of the air conditioning units and the back parking lot, despite the hotel being half empty according to the occupancy reports she'd reviewed. Well, they certainly didn't give Patricia Bell the VIP treatment, she said to herself with a small smile. This was exactly what she wanted, to experience the hotel as an average guest would. Pam unpacked her few belongings, hanging up the blouse she'd wear to dinner. She sat on the bed and opened her personal notebook, not her business one, and began making casual observations. The mattress was still good quality, The television was modern, but the bathroom showed signs of hasty cleaning. A previous guest's hair remained in the shower drain, and the complimentary toiletries were the cheapest brand available, not the luxury items advertised on the hotel's website. After freshening up, Pam decided to explore the hotel before dinner. She left her room, making sure her door locked properly behind her, and headed back to the elevator. This time she shared it with a hotel employee, a young woman in housekeeping uniform pushing a cleaning cart. "Good afternoon," Pam said with a smile. The woman nodded but didn't return the greeting. Her name tag read, Diane, and she looked exhausted, dark circles visible under her eyes. "Been a busy day?" Pam asked, trying again. Diane sighed. "Every day is busy when they don't hire enough staff." She immediately looked as if she regretted the comment. "I mean, it's fine." "Just fine," Pam nodded sympathetically. "I understand. My sister works in hospitality too." This small lie opened the door. Diane's shoulders relaxed slightly. "They cut our team from 12 to 8, but expect us to clean the same number of rooms in the same amount of time."
Quality suffers, you know.
But management doesn't care as long as it looks clean at first glance. The elevator reached the lobby, and Diane pushed her cart out. "Enjoy your stay," she said, already moving toward her next task. Pam watched her go, adding another note to her mental list. Staff reductions had been mentioned in the financial reports as a cost-saving measure, but seeing the human impact was different. Overworked staff rarely provided exceptional service. Over the next hour, Pam wandered through the hotel as if she were any curious guest. She noted the empty pool with leaves floating on its surface, the fitness center with 2 broken machines marked out of order, and the business center where only one of 3 computers was functioning. At each station, she observed staff who seemed to be going through the motions rather than taking pride in their work. The bartender in the lobby lounge mixed drinks while chatting with friends on his phone. The concierge desk was unmanned entirely, with a sign reading "back in 15 minutes" that had collected a visible layer of dust. By the time Pam headed to the hotel restaurant for dinner, her notebook contained several pages of observations. The restaurant at least looked promising. White tablecloths adorned each table, and soft lighting created a pleasant atmosphere. The menu, when presented, featured several dishes that sounded appealing. Her waiter approached with a practiced smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "Good evening. Welcome to Azure. My name is Jack, and I'll be taking care of you tonight. Can I start you with something to drink?" "Just water for now, please," Pam replied. "And maybe your recommendation for dinner?" "What's fresh today?" Jack's smile faltered slightly. "Well, everything is good. The salmon is popular." "Is it fresh or frozen?" Pam asked casually. Jack glanced around before leaning in slightly. "Between us? Everything's frozen. Chef quit 2 weeks ago, and we've got the sous chef running the kitchen, but the salmon is the least likely to disappoint." Pam appreciated his honesty. "Salmon it is, then." As Jack walked away, Pam added another note. The restaurant had been a significant selling point for the hotel, once featured in local food magazines. Another area of decline, apparently. Her water arrived in a smudged glass. The salmon, when it came, was overcooked and served with vegetables that had clearly been reheated multiple times. Pam ate enough to avoid suspicion but left most of the meal untouched. When Jack returned to clear her plate, he looked concerned. "Was everything okay?" "It was fine," Pam said, not wanting to make trouble for him personally. "Just not very hungry." Jack nodded knowingly. "Dessert?" "The cheesecake is actually decent. We get it from a local bakery." This small bit of honesty made Pam smile genuinely. "Sure, I'll try the cheesecake." The dessert, as promised, was the highlight of the meal. Pam paid her bill, leaving Jack a generous tip, and headed back to her room. Tomorrow would be a full day of observation, and she needed to rest. In her room, Pam kicked off her shoes and sat cross-legged on the bed with her notebook. She began organizing her thoughts, creating categories of issues: staffing, maintenance, customer service, food quality. The problems seemed to cascade from one area to another. Underpaid, overworked staff couldn't provide quality service. Cost-cutting measures had led to deferred maintenance. Leadership appeared absent entirely. But beneath the problems, Pam could still see the bones of a good hotel. The building itself was well designed. The location was excellent. With the right leadership and proper investment, the Grand Meridian could shine again. Pam closed her notebook and leaned back against the headboard. Tomorrow she would continue her undercover work, interacting with more staff, testing more services. She would gather all the information she needed before revealing herself as the new owner. Pam woke to the shrill ring of her alarm clock. Sunlight streamed through a gap in the curtains she hadn't fully closed the night before. She stretched and winced at a twinge in her back. The mattress hadn't done her any favors. For a hotel that charged premium rates, the basics of a good night's sleep seemed overlooked. She reached for the phone and dialed room service. After 6 rings, someone finally answered with a curt, "Room service." "Good morning," Pam said cheerfully. "I'd like to order breakfast, please." "Go ahead." The voice on the other end sounded as if they were doing her a favor by taking her order. "I'd like the American breakfast with scrambled eggs, wheat toast instead of white, and coffee. Could I get the bacon extra crispy, please?" A sigh came through the receiver. "Fine. Room number?" 412. 30 to 45 minutes. The line went dead before Pam could thank them. She jotted down notes about the interaction while she showered and dressed. The bathroom fixtures had seen better days, with calcium deposits around the faucets and a shower head that sprayed in unpredictable directions. The towels were thin and scratchy against her skin. Almost an hour later, a knock at the door announced her breakfast. A young man stood in the hallway with a tray, looking at his watch impatiently. "Morning," Pam greeted him. He merely nodded and thrust the tray toward her. "Thank you," she said, accepting it. She waited a moment for him to remove the metal cover from the plate, or ask if she needed anything else, as proper service protocol dictated. Instead, he stuck out his hand for a tip. Pam shifted the tray to one arm and reached for her wallet, handing him a generous tip despite the poor service. His expression didn't change as he pocketed the money and turned away without a word. Inside her room, Pam set the tray on the small table by the window and removed the cover herself. Her heart sank at what she saw. The eggs were barely warm and runny, not scrambled firm as she'd ordered. The toast was white, not wheat, and the bacon was limp and greasy. The coffee at least was hot, though when she took a sip she found it bitter and burnt tasting. Pam took a photo of the meal with her phone for her records, then tried a bite of the eggs. They were not only undercooked but also unseasoned. She pushed the plate away and settled for the coffee, grimacing with each sip. She picked up the phone again and dialed the front desk. "Front desk. How can I help you?" A bored female voice answered. "Hello, this is room 412. I ordered breakfast, but it's not what I requested. The eggs are undercooked, the toast is wrong, and the bacon is practically raw." A pause, then. "Do you want us to replace it?" "Yes, please." "That would be great." Another pause. "It'll be another 30 minutes at least." "Kitchen's backed up." Pam checked her watch. "That's fine. I'd appreciate if they could make sure the eggs are fully cooked this time." "Yeah, I'll tell them." The call ended abruptly. 45 minutes passed with no sign of a replacement breakfast. Pam called again, and a different voice informed her that they had no record of her second order. By this point, she was genuinely hungry, but also gathering valuable information about how the hotel handled customer complaints. She decided to address the issue in person. Dressed in simple slacks and a plain sweater, she made her way to the front desk. 2 employees were chatting together, neither acknowledging her presence until she cleared her throat. One of them, a woman with a name tag reading Veronica, turned to her with a plastered-on smile. "Can I help you?" "Yes, I'm in room 412. I called earlier about a problem with my breakfast order, but the replacement never arrived." Veronica's smile didn't reach her eyes. "I'm sorry about that. Kitchen gets busy in the mornings. I understand, but it's been almost an hour, and I was told my order wasn't even entered." Veronica's colleague, a man whose name tag read Anthony, rolled his eyes just enough for Pam to notice. "These things happen," he muttered, not looking up from his computer. "Could I speak with a manager?" Pam asked politely. Veronica's smile tightened. "Manager's in a meeting right now. When will they be available?" "Hard to say. Very busy day today." Veronica shuffled some papers. "I can give you a breakfast voucher for the restaurant if you want." Pam nodded. "That would be helpful, thank you." Veronica scribbled on a small card and handed it over. "There you go. Anything else?" Before Pam could answer, Veronica had already turned back to Anthony, resuming their conversation as if Pam had vanished. She heard Anthony mutter something that sounded suspiciously like, Some people expect 5-star service on a 3-star budget. Pam tucked the voucher into her pocket and walked away, her cheeks burning slightly at the dismissal. As the actual owner of the hotel, she could have ended the conversation very differently, but that wasn't the purpose of her undercover stay. The restaurant was half empty when she arrived. She handed the voucher to the host, who examined it with suspicion. "Room service issue?" he asked, not sounding sympathetic. "Yes, my breakfast never arrived correctly," he shrugged. "Happens all the time. This way." He led her to a table near the kitchen doors, despite plenty of nicer tables being available by the windows. Pam said nothing but made another mental note. Her server, a different person from the previous night, slapped a menu down on the table. "Coffee?" "Yes, please. And water." The server nodded and left without another word. When he returned with her drinks, he didn't introduce himself or ask if she had questions about the menu. "I'll have the omelet, please," Pam said, "with toast and fruit on the side." "Kitchen's out of fruit," he replied. "Delivery didn't come yesterday." "Toast is fine then." Her breakfast, when it finally arrived, was better than the room service attempt, but still mediocre. The omelet was overcooked on the outside, runny in the middle, and the toast was burnt on one side. Pam ate what she could, left a tip that reflected the service, and headed out to continue her evaluation of the hotel. She decided to visit the spa, which had once been a highlight of the Grand Meridian according to online reviews from previous years. The spa entrance was elegant, with a small waterfall feature that created a soothing sound. A good first impression, Pam thought, until she noticed the water had a greenish tinge suggesting it hadn't been properly maintained. The receptionist was busy on her phone when Pam approached. "Excuse me," Pam said after standing there for nearly a minute. The young woman looked up with obvious reluctance. "Yeah? I'd like to book a massage for this afternoon if possible." The receptionist tapped at her computer. "We only have a slot at 4:30, 30 or 60 minutes?" "60, please. Name and room number?" "Patricia Bell, room 412, more tapping. That's $150 charged to your room." Pam knew from her review of the hotel's financial records that this was $30 more than the listed spa price. "The website says massages are $120, she pointed out. The receptionist barely hid her annoyance. "Weekend rates are different. It's $150. Rather than argue, Pam nodded. "That's fine. Be here at 4:15 to fill out paperwork." The receptionist immediately returned to her phone. Conversation clearly over. On her way back through the lobby, Pam noticed a small group of employees huddled near the elevators. As she passed, she distinctly heard one of them say, "Room 412 is becoming a problem." Another laughed. They fell silent when they realized she was within earshot, but the damage was done. Her room number was apparently now associated with complaints. Pam spent the next few hours exploring the hotel grounds and noting more issues. The pool area had chipped tiles and broken lounge chairs. The fitness center smelled of mildew, and the business center's printer was out of ink with a sign saying it had been that way for over a week. Around 2 p.m., she returned to her room to find it hadn't been cleaned despite the "Please make up room" sign she'd left on the door. She called housekeeping. "Housekeeping." The voice sounded harried. "Hello, this is room 412. I left the sign out, but my room hasn't been cleaned yet. We're behind today, short-staffed. Maybe in an hour. I have a spa appointment at 4:30. Could it be done before then?" A heavy sigh came through the phone. "We'll try, ma'am." Pam thanked her and hung up. She used the next hour to update her notes and check her personal email on her phone. Just as she was about to give up on housekeeping, there was a knock at the door. Diane from the elevator stood there looking even more tired than the day before. "Housekeeping," she said flatly. "Thank you for coming," Pam said, gathering her things. "I'll step out so you can work." Diane nodded gratefully. "Shouldn't take long." Pam headed down to the lobby, finding a seat where she could observe the front desk operations. 20 minutes later, she returned to her room to find the bed hastily made and fresh towels in the bathroom. But the trash hadn't been emptied, and the coffee service hadn't been replenished. At 4:15, she arrived at the spa for her appointment. The receptionist pointed to a stack of forms without looking up from her magazine. Pam filled them out and waited. And waited. At 4:45, 15 minutes past her appointment time, she approached the desk again. "Excuse me, my appointment was for 4:30. The receptionist checked her computer. Your therapist called in sick. We left a message in your room. I've been here since 4:15. You could have told me. The woman shrugged. Must have slipped my mind. We can reschedule for tomorrow or cancel the charge. Please cancel the charge, Pam said, working to keep her voice even. This level of disrespect toward a paying guest was unacceptable. As she walked away from the spa, Pam overheard two employees near the service elevator mockingly imitating someone's complaints. With a jolt, she realized they were mimicking her voice and accent from her conversation with the front desk earlier. They laughed loudly, not bothering to lower their voices as she passed. For the first time since arriving, Pam felt a flash of real anger. Not because of how they were treating her personally, she could handle rudeness, but because this was how they treated all guests. This was her hotel. These were her employees. And this was the experience they were providing to people who chose to stay at the Grand Meridian. Back in her room, Pam sat down with her notebook. The pattern was clear: indifferent service, poor maintenance, disrespect toward guests, and a complete lack of leadership. The hotel wasn't just underperforming, it was actively driving away business through terrible customer experiences. Pam woke on the third day of her undercover stay with a sense of purpose. She'd documented enough problems to justify a complete overhaul of the hotel's operations, but today would be her final test. She would directly address a significant issue with management and observe how they handled it. Their response would tell her everything she needed to know about the leadership culture she was about to change. The morning started with another disappointment. She turned on the shower to find only a trickle of lukewarm water. After 5 minutes of adjusting the knobs with no improvement, she called maintenance. Maintenance, a gruff voice answered. Good morning. This is room 412. I have almost no water pressure and what's coming out is barely warm. 4th floor is having plumbing issues. The man sounded completely unconcerned. Nothing we can do right now. Is there any estimate on when it might be fixed? Nope, waiting on parts. Could be tomorrow, could be next week. Pam took a deep breath. Is there another room I could move to? You'd have to ask the front desk about that. The line went dead. After making do with what amounted to a sponge bath from the sink, Pam dressed and headed down to the front desk. The lobby was busier than previous days, with a tour group checking in. She waited patiently in line, watching as the same staff members she'd encountered before processed the new arrivals with the same lack of enthusiasm. When her turn came, she found herself facing Anthony from the day before. His expression soured slightly when he recognized her. How can I help you? He asked flatly. I'm having issues with the water in room 412. Maintenance says it's a known problem with the 4th floor. I'd like to change rooms, please. Anthony tapped at his keyboard with exaggerated slowness. We're pretty full with the tour group that just arrived. I understand, but I can't shower in my current room. Surely there must be something available. He sighed dramatically and tapped a few more keys. We have a room on the 2nd floor. It's smaller than what you have now. That's fine as long as the water works. It's also near the elevator, so it might be noisy. Pam nodded. That's not a problem. Anthony seemed almost disappointed that she wasn't complaining about the downgrade. He prepared the new key cards with visible reluctance. Room 217. You'll need to move your things immediately so housekeeping can prepare 412 for new guests. I'll do that right away. Thank you for your help. He slid the key cards across the counter without another word and called, Next, before she had even picked them up. As Pam walked toward the elevator, she spotted a familiar face, the hotel's general manager, Ronald Wilson. She recognized him from the employment files she'd reviewed during the acquisition. He was a tall man with a permanently harried expression, currently barking orders at a bellhop about the tour group's luggage. She observed him for a moment. His manner was brusque, his tone condescending. The young bellhop's shoulders hunched more with each criticism. This, Pam thought, explained a lot about the hotel's culture. Back in room 412, Pam quickly packed her belongings. As she zipped her suitcase, there was a sharp knock at the door. A housekeeper she hadn't seen before stood in the hallway, already pushing a cleaning cart into the doorway. I need to clean now, the woman said. Not quite making eye contact, I'm just leaving, Pam replied, gathering her things. Give me 1 minute. The woman sighed loudly and tapped her foot while Pam did a final check of the room. As Pam wheeled her suitcase past, the housekeeper muttered something under her breath that sounded suspiciously like, finally. Room 217 was indeed smaller, with a view of the air conditioning units on the roof, But the water pressure was blessedly normal and the hot water actually hot. Pam took the shower she'd been denied that morning, then prepared for the next stage of her evaluation. She headed to the hotel restaurant for lunch, bringing her notebook disguised as a personal journal. The restaurant was half empty again, yet she was seated at a wobbly table near the kitchen doors. Her server took 15 minutes to acknowledge her, then rushed through the specials as if reciting a boring poem. Pam ordered a simple chicken sandwich and iced tea. When the food arrived, the chicken was dry and the bread stale, but she'd come to expect nothing less. She ate just enough to be polite, then asked for the check. When the bill arrived, she noticed an extra charge for a dessert she hadn't ordered. She flagged down her server. "Excuse me, there's a charge here for cheesecake, but I didn't have dessert." The server barely glanced at the bill. "Oh, that must be a mistake. Could you correct it, please?" "I'll have to get the manager. It'll take a while." "That's fine. I'll wait." The server gave her a look that suggested this was a major inconvenience, then disappeared into the kitchen. 10 minutes passed with no sign of him or the manager. Pam finally stood up and approached the host stand. "I've been waiting for someone to correct my bill. I was charged for an item I didn't receive." The host, a young man with a perpetually bored expression, shrugged. "Ted's probably on break. I'll find someone." Another 10 minutes passed before a harried-looking woman approached her table. "I'm Lisa, the assistant restaurant manager. There's a problem with your bill?" Pam explained the situation again. Lisa took the check, studied it briefly, and then produced a new one without the dessert charge. There was no apology, no acknowledgement of the error or the wait. "Thank you," Pam said as Lisa turned to leave. "Actually, could I speak with the hotel manager today? I've had several issues during my stay that I'd like to discuss." Lisa's expression suggested this was an unreasonable request. "Mr. Wilson is very busy with a tour group today. You can leave a message at the front desk. I'd prefer to speak with him directly. When would be a good time?" "Like I said, he's busy. Maybe try tomorrow." Lisa walked away before Pam could respond. Pam paid her corrected bill and left the restaurant. Rather than leave a message that would likely be ignored, she decided to take matters into her own hands. She'd observed enough of the hotel's operations to know that the problem stemmed from the top. It was time to see exactly how Mr. Wilson handled guest complaints. She took a seat in the lobby, pretending to read a magazine while watching the front desk. An hour passed before she spotted Wilson emerging from the back office, checking his watch impatiently as he headed toward the main entrance. Pam intercepted him with a polite smile. "Mr. Wilson? I'm a guest here at the Meridian, and I was hoping to speak with you for a moment." He barely broke stride. "I'm late for a meeting." "Talk to the front desk." "I've tried that," Pam said, keeping pace with him. "I've had several issues during my stay that I'd like to address with management directly." Wilson stopped reluctantly, glancing at his watch again. "What's the problem?" "I've experienced poor service in multiple areas of the hotel. Room service brought incorrect orders. Housekeeping left my room half cleaned, maintenance couldn't fix basic issues, and I was overcharged at the restaurant." Wilson's face remained impassive. "I apologize for the inconvenience. We're short-staffed right now. I understand staffing challenges, but there also seems to be an issue with how guests are treated. I overheard staff mocking my complaints, and I've been dismissed repeatedly when raising legitimate concerns." A flash of annoyance crossed Wilson's face. "Which room are you in?" "I was in 412, but I had to move to 217 due to water pressure issues." Something in Wilson's expression changed. 412. Yes, I've heard about your concerns." The way he said it made it clear that what he'd heard wasn't flattering. Pam kept her voice even. "I'm simply trying to bring these issues to your attention as the manager." Wilson checked his watch yet again. "Look, Ms. Bell. Patricia Bell. Ms. Bell. The Grand Meridian may not be the right fit for your expectations. Perhaps you'd be more comfortable at the budget hotel down the street. I'd be happy to have the front desk assist with an early checkout." The dismissal was so blatant that Pam was momentarily speechless. She'd expected poor service, but not an outright suggestion that she leave. "I paid for 3 nights," she said finally. "I'm not looking for a refund or compensation. I simply wanted to provide feedback on my experience." Wilson's smile was thin. "And I've received your feedback. Now, if you'll excuse me, I really am late for a meeting with people who actually matter to this business." He walked away, leaving Pam standing in the middle of the lobby. Nearby, she noticed Tyler from the front desk and another employee watching. They quickly turned away when they caught her eye, but not before she heard one of them snicker. That was it. The final straw. Pam had seen and heard enough. The Grand Meridian wasn't just suffering from neglect. It was being actively mismanaged by people who had no respect for their guests or their jobs. She walked slowly to the elevator, her mind racing with plans. It was time to end the charade. Tomorrow morning, she would reveal herself as the new owner and begin the process of rebuilding the hotel from the ground up, starting with the management team that had created this toxic culture. Pam woke before her alarm on the final day of her undercover stay. She'd slept surprisingly well, energized by the clarity that comes with making a decision. Today, everything would change for the Grand Meridian and its staff. She dressed with care, choosing a crisp white blouse and tailored navy pants, professional but not intimidating. She applied light makeup and styled her hair neatly, transforming from casual guest Patricia Bell to Pam Bondi, CEO and new owner. From her suitcase's hidden compartment, she retrieved her portfolio containing the acquisition documents, company ID, and the business card she hadn't expected to use quite so soon. The woman who looked back from the mirror was different from the tired traveler who had arrived 3 days ago. That had been a deliberate disguise. This was who she really was, confident, prepared, and ready to take charge. Pam called her assistant, who had been standing by at a nearby hotel. "Grace, it's time. Bring the files to the Meridian's main conference room in 1 hour, and call the corporate legal team. I want them on standby for a video call at 10 a.m. With those arrangements made, Pam headed down to the front desk. The lobby was quiet this early. Anthony was on duty again, scrolling through his phone. He didn't look up until she was standing directly in front of him. "Yes?" His tone suggested she was interrupting something important. "Good morning, Anthony. I need access to the main conference room at 9:30 for a meeting." He frowned. "The conference rooms are for business clients and events only." "I'm aware of the policy. I still need the room." Anthony sighed dramatically. "Do you have a reservation for it?" "No, but this is a special circumstance. I can't just give you a conference room because you think your situation is special." His voice had taken on the patronizing tone she'd heard him use with other guests. Pam maintained her composure. "I understand. In that case, please call Mr. Wilson. Tell him I need to speak with him immediately about an urgent matter regarding hotel ownership." Anthony rolled his eyes. "Mr. Wilson doesn't come in until 10 and he doesn't take unscheduled meetings." "He'll take this one," Pam said, her voice firm but calm. "Please call him now." Something in her tone finally penetrated Anthony's indifference. He picked up the phone reluctantly and dialed, turning slightly away as if to prevent her from hearing. "Sir, sorry to bother you so early." "Yes, I know. There's a guest here very insistent about meeting with you. Something about hotel ownership." He listened for a moment, then turned back to Pam. "Your name?" "Pam Bondi." Anthony repeated the name into the phone. His eyes widened slightly at whatever Wilson said in response. "Yes, sir." "Right away, sir." He hung up and looked at Pam with new wariness. "Mr. Wilson will be here in 20 minutes. He said to give you whatever you need." "Thank you. I'll need the main conference room prepared for 12 people, with water and coffee. And please ask all department heads to meet there at 9:30 sharp." Anthony hesitated only briefly before picking up the phone again. "This is Anthony at the front desk. I need the main conference room set up immediately." "Yes, by order of Mr. Wilson." Pam watched the sudden flurry of activity with quiet satisfaction. She took a seat in the lobby, reviewing her notes one last time while keeping an eye on the entrance. At precisely 9:15, Ronald Wilson burst through the doors, his usual harried expression now tinged with anxiety. He spotted her immediately and hurried over, hand extended. "Ms. Bondi, what a pleasure. I had no idea you were visiting the property this week." Pam stood and shook his hand firmly. "That was intentional, Mr. Wilson. I've been staying here for the past 3 days under the name Patricia Bell." The color drained from Wilson's face as recognition dawned. "Room 412? But that's..." "Yes, the guest you suggested should stay at the budget hotel down the street, because people who actually matter to the business were waiting." Pam kept her voice pleasant. But the message was clear. Wilson's mouth opened and closed without sound. Finally, he managed, "There's been a terrible misunderstanding. If I'd known who you were, then you would have treated me completely differently, which is exactly why I didn't announce myself." Pam glanced at her watch. The department heads should be gathering now. Shall we join them? She didn't wait for his response, walking confidently toward the conference room. Wilson scrambled to keep up, already sweating through his shirt despite the hotel's aggressive air conditioning. The conference room was a flurry of confused activity when they arrived. Department heads whispered among themselves, casting nervous glances at the door. Some Pam recognized from her file review, others she'd encountered during her stay. All looked apprehensive about the unexpected meeting. Grace, Pam's assistant, was already there, setting up a laptop and organizing folders at the head of the table. She nodded discreetly at Pam, confirming everything was ready. Wilson attempted to take control, moving toward the head of the table. "Everyone, we have a special guest today." "Thank you, Mr. Wilson," Pam interrupted smoothly. "I'll take it from here." She moved to the head of the table, standing tall as all eyes turned to her. Grace quietly took a seat to her right, tablet ready to take notes. "Good morning, everyone. My name is Pam Bondi. As of last Friday, I am the new owner and CEO of the Grand Meridian hotel chain." The room erupted in surprised murmurs. Wilson, now sitting halfway down the table, looked like he might be ill. "For the past 3 days, I've been staying in this hotel as a regular guest under the name Patricia Bell. Some of you may recognize me from my interactions with you during that time." She saw recognition dawn on several faces. The front desk staff who had dismissed her complaints, the restaurant server who had overcharged her, the housekeeper who had rushed her out of her room. One by one, they averted their eyes. "I didn't come here today to fire anyone, though I would be justified in doing so based on what I've observed." Pam opened her portfolio and removed her detailed notes. "Instead, I want to share my experience and outline the changes that will begin immediately." For the next 15 minutes, Pam methodically described her stay, the cold food, the dismissive service, the maintenance issues, the mockery from staff, and finally, her treatment by management. She didn't raise her voice or single anyone out directly, but her precise recollection of events left no doubt that she had documented everything. The Grand Meridian was once known for exceptional service and luxury accommodations. Today it offers neither. The question is why? She looked around the table, meeting each person's eyes before continuing. After reviewing the financial records and observing operations firsthand, "I believe the problems stem from 3 areas: inadequate staffing, poor maintenance, and most critically, a failure of leadership." Wilson flinched visibly at this, but Pam continued, "Effective immediately. I am implementing the following changes. First, we're restoring full staffing levels in housekeeping and maintenance, the cost-cutting measures that have been prioritized over guest experience and today." Several staff members exchanged hopeful glances. "Second, we're conducting a complete property assessment. Every broken chair, every leaking faucet, every outdated piece of equipment will be identified and fixed or replaced." Pam turned a page in her notes. "Third, we're implementing a new customer service training program for all staff. This isn't about punishing anyone for past behavior. It's about providing you with the tools and support you need to excel." She paused, allowing this to sink in. A few heads nodded cautiously. "Finally, we're restructuring the management team. This hotel needs leadership that respects both guests and staff, that understands luxury service isn't just about the building or the amenities, it's about how you make people feel." She looked directly at Wilson now. "Mr. Wilson, I'd like you to stay after the meeting. We have matters to discuss regarding your future with the company." Wilson nodded stiffly, his face ashen. "The rest of you have a choice to make. If you're willing to be part of the new Grand Meridian, to commit to the standards we'll be setting, then I want you on this team. If not, we'll provide generous severance packages. I need your decision within the week." The room was silent, the atmosphere thick with a mixture of shock, fear, and for some, a glimmer of hope. "One last thing," Pam said, her tone softening slightly. "During my stay, I did notice bright spots. Diane in housekeeping, who despite being overworked, still managed to be honest and hardworking. Jack in the restaurant, who was straightforward about the kitchen's limitations rather than making excuses. These small moments of authenticity matter. They're the foundation we'll build on." She closed her portfolio. "We'll meet again tomorrow at the same time to begin detailed planning. Until then, continue operations as normal, but remember, I'm no longer undercover. I'll be watching, and I expect to see immediate improvement in how our guests are treated. Thank you for your time." As the department heads filed out, many still looking stunned, Pam remained standing at the head of the table. She caught snippets of whispered conversations, disbelief, worry, and from a few cautious optimism. Wilson remained seated, staring at the table surface, awaiting his fate. Grace leaned over and whispered, "That went well. What are you going to do about him?" Pam gathered her materials, keeping her voice low. "He created this culture. He can't be part of fixing it.